better not to work on eradicating poverty, but create prosperity. And I think that it's better to focus on creating something good than to fighting against something, because here you have more positive energy and it brings more positive with it.
Thank you for joining us today. We are here with Satenik Khachatryan. Thank you very much, Satenik, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me here.
So, you are the founder of My Agrisummer International Camp. Can you please tell us a bit more about the summer camp?
Yes, with pleasure. It has a long journey of a process of this thought that traveled in my mind with me when I was living and studying abroad. And the first idea came to me to establish a summer program for children when I was doing a research in Sweden. And my research was linked with the Armenian children that lived in Sweden. And the focus of my research was what is the impact of home language and culture for the children and for the identity development. And the results of my research were not something that made me happy, because, which was also expected, because the community in Gothenburg, where I did the research, was very small. And even when the children came from a family where two parents were Armenians, they still didn't speak Armenian or the culture. They were not very familiar with the culture. So the global culture and the Swedish culture was dominant in their life. And in my talks also with the Armenian language teacher that was working with children, because Sweden has a really good program of incorporating home languages and cultures in their school programs. But even after that, there was still a challenge. And especially when children were growing up in their teenage years, they were facing these identity issues, whether they are Armenian, Swedish, where do they belong to? And the first thought came to me when I decided that I can establish a program, and it can be a summer program, where children from Armenian diaspora can come and experience an authentic 1 week life, Armenian real life in a village. And the idea was not to show the children the places of interest that Armenia has, but so that they can be involved fully and truly in the Armenian life. And it can be experienced mostly in village context, because there are a lot of things that we still had in the village. At the same time, when I was studying, I always was having this comparison of Armenian culture and the culture, for instance, Western culture, and like in Sweden or Norway, which are one of the economically well-developed countries, they already lost a lot of things due to the globalization, like this human contact and all these values. Of course, there were a lot of things to learn, but I realized that this connection and helping each other and things that money is out of the conversation, in the sense that you do with this lavutun that we have in Armenian, we say. So a lot of things like this. And at the same time, my research about children and childhood, and that proves that the best environment is close to the nature, when children can learn through nature and experience and learn from their own experiences, not from the gadgets. Of course, it has its own benefits, but to help them to experience the life that the childhood that our parents or parents of our parents could have. And actually, it was also my childhood, because I grew up in a small village, Martuni, and I remember my childhood as living close to the nature, playing in the forest, and all the time doing outdoor games. But at that time, I was thinking that my childhood is not so privileged, because I don't live in the city, I don't go to a good school, and I can have, I wouldn't be able to realize my full potential. But when I was doing my studies in Sweden and in Norway, where I saw how big part the nature has in their preschool education and in the life of people in general, and how it is incorporated in education. And I learned about like forest kindergartens or schools. I realized that I actually had a quite privileged childhood, because I grew up in the environment that the modern research says it's one of the best. Yeah. And then all these ideas were in my head when I came back to Armenia after my studies in 2015. And at that time I was thinking also to be involved in programs that I can help the development of Armenia and establishing good programs for children, and also helping the rural Armenian communities to overcome all these social economic issues that we were facing. And then I was involved in an international organization, and we were doing a lot of programs for community development. And then I decided that I should bring into life in my ideas, and it was 2019, January. I decided to take a 2-month leave from my work, and I was really happy to be given this opportunity and focus fully on what I want to do, and think that it's time to realize what I have in my head, to make it into life and not to postpone, because very often we are in this life routine and we think we postpone what we really want.
We'll do it tomorrow.
Yes, and we usually are guided by our mind, thinking what is best, but we silence the voice of heart. Yeah. So I decided that I'm going to hear the voice of my heart, and it told me that I should establish this program. And it came into life, and I was happy that my sister supported me in this, and we started to build it.
That's very nice. So we'll get back to the details of the camp. So you mentioned studying abroad in Sweden and Norway. So can you tell us a bit more about your studies, your field of expertise? What have you done particular research in?
Yeah, I studied here in Armenia in the linguistic university, and I was specialized to be English teacher and in the field of teaching. But I wanted to go further in the field of education, and then I went to study to do international masters in early childhood education, which involved 4 universities in 4 countries in Europe. It was Norway, Sweden, Ireland, and Malta. Oh. And actually it was a really great experience and great journey to study in all these academic cultures and learn what they do with childhood, what they do with children, and pick up all these best things that are we have at the moment, and the science knows at the moment for what is best for the children. And I did my research in Sweden, where I researched what is the role of home language and culture in the lives of children. And I also was researching at the same time all the practices, because it was a research-based program that I was doing, and I had really great professors, not only from these countries but also from Australia and New Zealand, which have also very well-established education systems that we can learn from, and all these researches and all these practices. I decided to combine in one project, and also to put it in practice in the Armenian context. I was thinking how I can accommodate it, and then I decided that I was having in my mind my village, my hometown village Martuni, that I was born and grew up, and I realized that actually this environment is the one that I was looking for, and I decided to establish the camp there. Oh.
So going back to your research on Armenian language in Sweden, so I want to make a bigger point. So for example, at Faces of Armenia, we believe that it's very important to preserve Armenian culture while integrating in the global field. So obviously your particular research is quite relevant to that. So how do you think we're able to do that, preserve our own culture while integrating in this globalized world?
Yeah, Actually, I would say that especially Norway and Sweden, they were doing a really great job in this sense, and a lot of countries could look and see and learn to incorporate home language and culture, to have like home language classes at schools, at public schools. But this is not enough, because the global culture is usually winning, like the commercial global culture, unfortunately. It doesn't matter actually if you live in this country or that country. And at the same time, if the dominant culture, for example, if you are in Sweden, the dominant culture is Swedish culture. But it also has a lot of cultures within it, because it's very multicultural country. I think a lot of work should be done from sense of language preservation, which is like the basics, and culture. It's very important to start it from family. Because I was researching, for instance, language choices of parents, yes? What languages do they speak at home? What is the culture inside the home? For instance, and I had this idea because it is very much, it's very close connected with my own story. My twin sister, she lives in Italy, and her children grow up in Italy, and her children are half Italian. So I was thinking how they can grow up as Armenian children and Italian at the same time. The most important is that using the language at home and reading Armenian fairy tales to children. This is very powerful. I tried this with children. Even they were not understanding very well what I was reading, but they were so much, it's like if you want to connect with the culture, you start with fairy tales, reading every night, and it has a very powerful effect, I would say. And it's very important also what choices parents have inside the home, what languages do they speak. It's very important to be consistent. Like, one parent at least should speak Armenian all the time, because children are very
absorbent.
Yeah, and then they know what language they can speak with you. If they know you understand Swedish, for instance, they will switch into Swedish because it's more convenient for them. Because most of the time they spend in preschool or kindergarten, so most of the hours they hear, for instance, the dominant language like Swedish, and then when they come home, it's very few hours with parents. So the parents need to use these hours and tell stories from Armenia, and it's also important to tell the stories of their family stories, where they come from, who are their parents, grandparents, what story, and speak about the story, because through these stories we carry this with us and we keep it alive, and this is very important.
Very interesting, very interesting. So going back to the camp, which is obviously important. So can you tell us a bit more about the activities, or what's a day like in your summer camp? How do they wake up? What do they do during the day? What do they eat? Is it, for example, only natural foods they eat? No junk food, no fast food.
That's true.
Please, can you tell us a bit more about the day in the life?
Yes, our camp is nature-based and agriculture-based, and we incorporated the outdoor education context, the outdoor education in the rural Armenian context. And actually the whole village becomes kind of a campground for us. And every day we go different places. We are not in one place all the time, because children become nature and village life discoverers. And we do all this discovery together. And for instance, we have workshop where children learn about beekeeping, how the honey is made, and they wear all this honey bee master dresses and go and close to the bees and see how it works. We have a workshop about nature and about forest and how everything is interrelated, because we aim also to plant these seeds of care for the nature and for our planet and for the ecology. And we also learn about herbs. We have like herbal hiking tours, and children pick up herbs and learn what is good for what, and then we make tea out of it. And then It's very common in the village when village people collect herbs and they dry and they use it as tea during winter time. And then we do it together with children. We also incorporate the artisan food culture, because in the villages people still make a lot of things with their own hand from the scratch, like food. Like how you can make, for instance, erishta, like Armenian noodles from the scratch. Children will learn this process, how you make things with your own hand, because we also want to instill children the idea that if you want something, you also can make with your own hands, and you don't need to go to the supermarket every time you need something. And this is like anti-consumerist approach in this sense, because this is also a problem, like when we grow up as consumers, and we also want children to be more conscious about this. At the same time, our camp is gadget-free, so children do not use any phones or any screens. It's like a screen-free, because we want children to know how the life is without screens. So that they know it's a really good life. They can have a good time also without screens. Or we also learn, for instance, we go to welcome the flocks that come, like cows or sheep that come from the fields, how they know how to go to their homes, and we will follow them, how the milking process, and learning like that the milk is not in the box in the supermarket, so where it comes from. So all this food chain process. Or planting or picking up berries, for instance, whatever grows at that time of the year. So we also incorporate the village life. So for instance, if this is a phase of hay collection in summertime, children participate also in this. If this is a time of berry picking from our garden, they also participate in this. Or they learn how to make matsun. And how you can turn milk into matsun and make it into yogurt, your own, and a lot of things like this. Do all the activities in the village and just feel like a village child and villager for 1 week.
So I'm guessing they also sleep in tents rather than beds, or?
Children stay in host families.
Oh, host families.
Yes.
So it's not in tents
it's
or
not
sleeping
in
bags.
Yes, they stay in host families. We have, which are also B&Bs. So they provide also B&B services. So they have all the conveniences for children's comfortable and safe stay. And we also want them to stay in host families, because there is also a lot of learning from the host families, sharing stories and all these wisdoms from the village. And last year we had our first experience, our first camp. And we can say that children didn't want to go. They say, I want to stay in my host family, I don't want to go home. and that bond was so strong. And
so where do the children come from? Is it from inside Armenia or from the diaspora? Or
children are from Yerevan, from diaspora. And we were planning to have groups also from France and Italy. We presented the program, and for instance in Italy, the children not Armenian, with Armenian background, they were interested also to come. So it's actually open for any child in the world. We call it an international camp, and we speak the languages that the children speak. For instance, it's like if we have children from diaspora, we speak Armenian, because our goal is to speak Armenian so children see the language in use and the importance of the language, and also improve their Armenian. If we have children that don't speak Armenian, we speak their language with them. So it's open for all the children, but specifically we want these for the first thought was the children from Armenian diaspora when we were starting the program. And actually, that's interesting that when we open registration, mostly children from diaspora are registered to come.
My name is Margarita Kanjan. I am 15 years old, and I come from Yerevan city.
I was born in Riga. I'm 10 years old, and what is the last one?
Your name?
Robert.
My name is Sarin. I'm 10 years old, and I'm from Boston.
One of the things I definitely like most is the nature here. The nature is really, really beautiful.
I like the basket making and the Armenian pasta making and the animals.
I love how we make the matzon, and when we went to the old church and found the treasures.
Enjoyable. I really like it here.
Agrisummer camp is cool.
It was really fun, and I am sad I will leave.
And is it free, or how do you fund the program?
It's a self-financing program, so from the fees that the parents pay for their children participation, we cover the costs, and it becomes also a source of income for community people. At the moment we have 5 families involved in the program, so this becomes a source of income for also community people. So actually in this sense with your child's participation you have indirect investment in the community development.
Right.
So you have 2 gains. One, your child has a good summer, and on the second hand, you have investment in the community development. And in this sense, for instance, a lot of Armenians in diaspora, they were thinking if they are thinking how they can support the communities, like rural areas for the development, so they can send their child to the camp and have with this their involvement in this.
Yeah, and I mean there's a lot of economic research on that field that, for example, to tackle poverty, you should not aim to tackle the poverty, but rather create prosperity. And would you agree with that statement from your own experiences?
Yeah, actually, when I was in searches of finding the formula for community development and poverty reduction, which is like one of the biggest issues in my area, in Jambarak and village Martuni area, and in most of the rural areas in Armenia, if not all. I believed that I was working in the programs and we were trying to eradicate poverty and we were focusing only eradicating poverty, but I realized that this is not a very successful model. And once I was searching the answers, and I came across with a TED Talk where they were sharing a successful experience, and and they said that it's better not to work on eradicating poverty, but create prosperity. And I think that it's better to focus on creating something good than to fighting against something, because here you have more positive energy and it brings more positive with it. So this positiveness starts to flow, and it actually gets more people in it. And we can say it from our own experience. Last year we had only 2 families involved, and this year we have already 5 families involved. So people are seeing the benefits and they want to join. And I think that one of the keys in community development is that people that live there, they need to be initiators of these programs. Now there are a lot of international programs that have a lot of goodwill to come and support and finance, but these are not sustainable. For sustainability, it's important that it comes from the bottom, and people who are the carriers of this issue, who live there, they need to start it. And our project has also this goal, to mobilize all the positive resources that the community has and involve more and more people within years.
Right. So in previous statements you had a more, I would say, anti-globalist tone. So, but you also mentioned that, for example, in Sweden, where they incorporate the forest activities in schools.
Yes.
So, would you say that's a positive aspect of globalization that might be, for example, incorporated in Armenian schools, and what other aspects from other countries' education systems, for example, can we bring into Armenia and reap the, I would say, positive benefits of globalization?
Yeah, surely. I was talking about the negative effects of
Yeah.
globalization.
Yeah, so what would you say?
But of course it has it. If there wasn't globalization, I come from a small village, I wouldn't get into Sweden. I wouldn't get the financing from the European Commission and be able to go and study and learn all this and bring it to Armenia. So this is really very important when we are able to incorporate all the positives that there are and see how it works in our context. And I believe that we shouldn't blindly copy-paste what is there and bring here, but we should see how it works in our context. And it's very also important for us in our projects that we are also for sustainability, like sustainable consumption, sustainable tourism, and that's why our groups are also small. Because we want to help the community, but we do not want to harm the community routine. We want to respect the life that the people have, but also help them naturally come to the development. Yes.
And so you're talking about sustainability. Well, do you think that Armenia is on the right track for going green and being sustainable and polluting less, and or is it in people's minds?
There are a lot of organizations that are working hard on this, but I think we should incorporate it very firmly in the education. It should start from kindergarten. It should start from the family, of course, first. And then all the education levels, we should incorporate this responsible consumption and how I'm, as a consumer, having my impact on the ecology. Yes, if I'm using plastic bags or if I'm buying, for instance, I decided from December 2019 that for 1 year I'm not going to buy anything for me, like any clothes and accessories, unless I'm really in need, because I realized I have what I want, and like shopping malls and shops are a closed story for me at the moment, and I was trying to lessen my impact in this way on the planet, and I think it's very important to have this in mind for starting from childhood. And when these children become decision makers, they already make green decisions in this sense.
So, in addition, do you get any support from the Armenian government or ministries of, for example, diaspora or any other relevant ministries? Are you subsidized in any way, or do you get any financial help or something like that? For your activities?
From the government, we did not apply for any support. We recently only started to think about being financed, because initially we wanted to be self-financed and independent, but the situation dictated other things to us. So we are planning to build a nature center which will become an educational and well-being center for children and also for adults, and we will do more programs. So the program, we have a vision to become something big in this sense, and also work also with local schools to bring children so that they can have this education, because we are also researching the practice of Denmark, and it's to see how they work. In the sense of financing, we have small financing at the moment from one of the international organizations, but we are now looking for more funds to be able to do what we plan to do and to become sustainable in this sense. At the moment, this is one of the challenges for us.
All right. Okay, so thank you very much, Satenik, for joining us today. And it was our honor and pleasure to have you and talk about your amazing, wonderful experiences for my Agrisummer International Camp. And from everyone at Faces of Armenia, we wish you the very best of luck and success in whatever you pursue in your life and career. Thank you very much.
Thank you too for having me here. It's a pleasure to come and share my story. And I also want to invite you to come to Village Martuni and see everything with your own.
Sure.
Seeing is believing, as they say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.